Hello, everyone. I'm Goose. This is a special Here to Chew Bubblegum. With sadness, friend of the show, Brad Holland, passed away on Monday, November 29th, 2021. Brad loved movies, video games, and music. Here's a song from Brad Holland.
Well, I never knew something like this could happen to you. You lost grip on the world and you let it go, and it cost you your soul. Well, I guess you're in a better place now, where the angels are flying and you won't see me around. It's like a death in the family, the tragic day when you were taken away from me. What was going through your head, man? What were you thinking? And now to get you off my mind, I think I'll just keep drinking. Well, I can hear your voice echoing in my head. Can't believe that you did and you left me here all alone in this world. Well, I guess you're in a better place now, where the angels are flying and you won't see me around. It's like a death in the family, the tragic day when you were taken away from me. What was going through your head, man? What were you thinking? And now to get you off my mind, I think I'll just keep drinking. Keep drinking, keep drinking, keep drinking. Keep drinking, keep drinking and drinking. Well, I guess you're in a better place now, where the angels are flying and you won't see me around. It's like a death in the family, the tragic day when you were taken away from me. What was going through your head, man? What were you thinking? And now to get you off my mind, I think I'll just keep drinking. Well, I guess you're in a better place now, where the angels are flying, man, I'll see you around.
This episode is dedicated to the memory of Brad Holland. Brad is going to open the show up for us.
I've come here to chew bubblegum.
I have come here to chew bubblegum.
Greetings.
I came here to chew bubble gum, and I'm out of bubble gum, so I'd rather just artfully articulate myself in a manner that would not result in physical contact.
Okay.
I'm not Dirty
good.
Dan. I'm Dingy Dave, Dirty Dan's third cousin, and I'm not as strong as him, so I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover.
Oh, yes. That is a friend of the show and host of Talk Junkie Retro Cult, co-host of the newest podcast, believe it or not, setting in for Dirty Dan today. Thank you very much, Justin. Thank you for setting in. Glad to have you here. I always love recording with you.
Well, I'm tickled to death to be here. I hate that it couldn't be with Dan and Rebecca, but I'm glad to get to fill in anyway.
Yes, well, Dirty Dan and Rebecca are tied up on a special detail. I have a question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Ghostbusters Afterlife. Your quote on Facebook was after you saw it, and I've got it wrote down word for word. I loved it probably more than I should have. Having said that, Bill Murray disappointed me for the first time in my entire life. What did you mean by that, my friend?
I'm a huge Bill Murray fan.
Yes.
I mean, a huge Bill Murray fan. Probably the only person that really, and I wouldn't even, he's probably equal to Bill Murray, is Chevy Chase. Another guy who's disappointed me many times in my life. I know all the rumors about them both being really hard to work with. They couldn't stand each other, and, you know, how tense things were on Caddyshack. But as Chevy Chase has the reputation of being a jerk 90% of the time. Bill Murray doesn't have that reputation. He just has a reputation of being hard to work with. But when, you know, they've been talking about this for 32 years, and I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan, and I was so excited to see that movie. Spoiler alert, give you time to turn it off. Bill Murray is in the movie. I watched a lot of interviews with Bill Murray coming up to the movie.
Right.
And all he really did was complain. And he normally does that, but he normally does it in a joking way. He didn't complain in a joking way. He just complained, and that was off-putting, but that is kind of Bill Murray. And then I watched the movie, and he just didn't want to be there.
Do you think his age now has a little something to do with it as to why he may have seemed off on his acting game?
If he didn't have the reputation of being that way all the time in the past, then maybe. Plus, like, I seen St. Vincent or whatever it was a couple years back. Good movie. I mean, like, I've seen him in recent stuff, and he's always good. He just didn't want to be there. And to be honest with you, I'd just rather he hadn't been there. Because Ernie Hudson wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And Dan Aykroyd wanted to be there. I don't know. It just kind of disappointed me. And it really, to me, it took away from the movie because, you know, I'm sitting there, I was like, I'd kill to be a part of that franchise. I think a lot of kids that are people that, I was like a kid watching it. A lot of people that grew up watching it as a kid and watched it later would have. And he just, I don't know. I was disappointed. And it has permanently altered the way I look at Bill Murray.
All right. So from the first time, and I think his first line in this one was like, hey, we're from the home office or something similar to that. So you think his acting skills acted in that whole scene?
Yeah.
Okay.
It really wasn't. I mean, obviously he's a great actor.
Yes.
It's just, you can tell when somebody doesn't want to do something. And
Right.
he didn't. And maybe I was somewhat tainted by the fact that a lot of people have talked about how badly he didn't want to do it. And it shows he didn't want to do it. And I don't understand that. Like,
What did you think about one of the bonus scenes at the end when they had Sigourney Weaver with him and her there?
I liked it. It didn't get me as excited as the last one. Because I think that means there's going to be another movie.
Right.
And I think Ernie Hudson, who deservingly is excited about the franchise, is going to get to be in it. I don't know. It's literally, my favorite movies are comedy movies. They just always have been. Comedy and martial arts. That's all I was ever really into. And my two favorite comedic actors are Bill Murray and Chevy Chase. And for whatever reasons, neither one of them are really nice people. And it come back to haunt Chevy Chase to the point that just basically nobody wanted to work with him.
Right.
And he was in a new movie on Netflix a couple years back, and it was good, you know. And he was in the Vacation remake, and it was okay. But Bill Murray has, had maybe issues of being flaky and not showing up and stuff like that. But I've not heard as many people go, well, he's just a bad guy and this and that. But from the time they started filming this thing, because you got to look, I think they started filming this in 18 or 19 at this point, because it's supposed to came out last year and didn't.
It was 19.
Like, ever since they started, he doesn't want to do it. All he does is complain. I was like, well, I mean, that's him. He'll still be good in the movie. And then I watched the movie, and then I made that tweet and seriously disappointed Elliot, I believe. It may have changed his feelings on me for the rest of his life. But I don't know. I love the movie.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be honest. That movie was one of the best movies that have come out in theaters probably in the last 6 or 7 years.
I talked to a lot of people who didn't like it, but all those people who didn't like it weren't huge fans of the original. And, you know, somebody asked me, if you didn't like the original so much, would you have liked that? I don't know, because I can't separate those two things. The original two movies were two of my favorite movies ever. But now Elliot made a comment on the last podcast they did, their Thanksgiving podcast, that it's now his second favorite Ghostbusters. It's not my second favorite. It's number 3. They go sequential in order as favorites.
But if you think about it for a second, in this Ghostbusters Afterlife, they didn't touch on anything from Ghostbusters 2. It was based on the original film.
Yeah, they didn't really mention it. But if you look at the timeline, you know, the number of years they say it is, and you kind of roughly do it, it's actually roughly falls in after the second one. But, I mean, just as far as my favorite, as far as what I liked the first one the best. Actually, the first one and the second one are so close, it's really hard for me to make a decision. And in this one, but I was excited from the time it started until the time it stopped. I was sad that Rick Moranis didn't make it back. But, you know, you look at why he quit acting and what he done, you can't have anything but respect for him. I think it would have been cool, even if it was a post-credit screen.
Right.
I think it would have been cool to have had him back, because now I think he's actually back to acting.
Yeah, he is.
But it's been since they filmed this.
Yeah. So you're a huge Bill Murray fan. What is your favorite movie with Bill Murray as a co-star? For me, it would be Ed Wood. I think he did a great job in that. That's
hard, because I guess he's got such a big name. I don't look at him necessarily as a co-star, but if with a really big cast, what's the one with Owen Wilson and Gene Hackman?
I know the one you're talking about, but I can't think of the name of it.
Is it Royal Tenenbaums?
Yeah.
That would probably be, because, I mean, like I said, it's hard to... The only movie of his I can think that I've never seen is Lost in Translation. The only movie of his that I've never finished is The Man Who Knew Too Little. That's the only two I can think of that I've never finished. I actually had to sit and think for a minute when you said Ed Wood, because I had to think about it. I was like, where's he at in Ed Wood? And then I thought about it. But now that I think, I tell you what, there's one he done with Robert Duvall called Get Low. And I would consider Robert Duvall the star in that. And it's not a particularly funny movie all the way through, but it is a really good movie. And that would probably be my favorite movie that he's not a star.
I'll have to check that out. Did you see Ed Wood by any chance?
Yes.
Did you like it?
I don't remember being crazy about it, because I literally seen it when it came out. Well, that's 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mid to late
So you
90s.
you need to go back and watch it now, because it's like Napoleon Dynamite. The first time I ever saw Napoleon Dynamite, I hated it.
I was the same way. I was like, I
thought this was awful. But when I started watching it again, I'm like, well, and I started picking up stuff that I didn't pick up on the first time. I started picking up stuff. That's the same way with Ed Wood.
Well, Ed Wood's a fascinating guy. So, I mean.
And the movie Ed Wood's one of my favorite movies. We're going to jump ahead and jump on into segment 1, getting it rolling now. We're going to talk about the new UFO office that we heard about earlier this week. Have you heard about this story?
Yes, I have.
The Pentagon dropped a UFO surprise late Tuesday night. A new office will be created to track and assess unidentified aerial phenomenon spotted over military ranges, according to a memo from Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks. The memos from Hicks specify that the new office has the job to detect, identify, and attribute unidentified objects to assess any possible threat to aviation, safety, and or national security. For decades, the Department of Defense has ridiculed and dismissed UFOs incidents and reports. It has stalled attempts by Congress and the public to access information and files related to military encounters with UFOs, including those seen over sensitive military facilities and assets, including nuclear weapon storage areas and missile bases. That's all that the article says. What's your thoughts on the new government-funded UFO office?
Well, it's a new public UFO office. Like, there's only three options here. All right, let's go with the idea that at least some or a portion of these reports are true. There's definitely aliens. There's definitely people from outer space. Let's go with something I think me and you both believe. Something very weird happened at Roswell, and it wasn't a weather balloon. This is the United States government. They want to know how much money you got in your bank if it's over $600. They know everything. Yeah. They look at everything. They've had a department to study this. I mean, we know Project Blue Book. We know Majestic 12. We know of all these different things. So this has happened so many times in the past. So, and those are things that made it public. That's just the ones that made it public. So if they're real, and I believe there is some credence to the fact that there are unidentified objects that are not ours out there, then this is not new. They're not that far behind the times. That's not the way any government works, but definitely not our government. So that's one. And if that's the case, then maybe they are so good at keeping a secret that even the Pentagon doesn't know. And this is the Pentagon's way of going, you know what, maybe we do need to look into this. But they have to know there's black budget money going to this. Or maybe it's all a ruse and they've made it all up and it's been fake this whole time. And this is just their way of kind of coming out publicly because they're getting ready to use it to their advantage. I don't see that being possible. I'm more likely to say the first one. But I assure you, either way, this is not the first department ever dedicated to studying UFOs. It's the first possibly public department that they've been open with up front. There's other stuff that went public, but this is maybe the first one they've ever publicly up front from the beginning said, yeah, we're going to look at aliens. But it's not the first one.
I think it was it may have been a couple of weeks ago, but anyway, Harry Reid reported like in 2016 or 17 that there was $26 million went to ATIP to support it happened maybe in 2006 to support their black budget stuff, and that brings in Lou Elizondo and all that. And I think it's kind of a big deal that they're creating this new office, even though this could be a front for something else. We're just going to let this information out. This one we're going to keep, hid. Maybe it's a combination with this new office.
I think it's probably a way to publicly filter what they want to get out. The argument's always been made, well, it's the era of the cell phone and the camera.
Yes. How
does anybody not have footage and it probably is getting a lot harder to hide it. And I do believe there's things they definitely want hidden. And, if there's anything out there that's not ours that's that advanced, they want to know before other countries know. And maybe this is a buffer between the organizations that we don't know about and the public in a way to disseminate information, but let out what they want to let out at the rate they want to let out.
Well, hitting closer to home, my little brother, Little Goose, messaged me at around 2:10 this morning. I was asleep, and he said he just saw a UFO. He went on to tell me that he was coming through US 23 near Jenkins, and that it just came off the top of the mountain. And he said it was a bright white object that shot across the sky and stopped in place, made a few turns that defy physics on Earth. It then zoomed off the mountains and out of sight. And I told him that he's not the only one over the past couple of years that have saw stuff like that in that area. There's actually, I think I've been 3 to 5 sightings, and one of them is on the Kentucky Highway Department of Transportation. Their cameras that they have of Pine Mountain and so forth in that area, even though that's a little bit stretched, air miles is not that far.
Well, that's nothing.
And they actually have an object, I think, from 2000 and maybe 18 or 19 captured that you can see on one of their cameras. So I wanted to pass that along. If anybody listening was in the Jenkins area or Letcher County or Whitesburg last night and you did see anything, please feel free to contact us and let us know what you saw. Something that's kind of amazed me, it seems like over the last month that some of the UFO sightings have kind of died down just a little bit, and you've not got as much reports as you had earlier in the year, in the summer, this time last year. What's your thoughts on that? Have you even noticed that?
Well, no, but in fairness, I don't really watch news. But I think a lot of that is same reason people didn't get as excited as they should have about those videos that came out that the Pentagon released. I think there's kind of this oversaturation of things. I don't think... you'd have to look at maybe MUFON's files and some other stuff. I would bet you that the amount of sightings is still pretty consistent with what it was. I would think probably just the reporting as far as mass media is down because, there's a lot of other things going on in society. And also, I don't think the release of those Pentagon videos had the impact that the people who released them thought they were going to. It didn't have the impact I thought it was going to have. I thought people were going to trip out because, look, you can believe either way you want to believe on what it is. You still got to find a way to explain it.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it. And it seems like a lot of people have had a hard time explaining it. I've seen people offer explanations, and then when you take the time to watch the video, it's clear that, and I'm not saying there's not an explanation for it, but the people who are attempting to explain it are kind of dumb and really don't have a clue what they're talking about. But I would say the reports are still there. I just don't think they're getting kind of the publicity they were getting.
Right. What do you think about Stonehenge?
I'm endlessly fascinated by Stonehenge, mainly because of its alignment on the summer solstice.
Okay.
That's you get into ancient civilizations and what they built and how they were able to build them. That's one of my greatest fascinations in life. That's something I could talk about. And I put an ad out the other day in a lot of different places, and I put it here. Any college professors, anybody who studies South American civilizations, ancient civilizations, the Maya, or even Aztecs and Pueblo, I would love to have somebody on Talk Junkie. I've got a couple of things I'd really like to talk about in regards to that.
There's a new story that's came out. It says Stonehenge experts have made stunning discovery that they say uncovered the Neolithic secrets of our ancestors. Last year, archaeologists were stunned after a new layer of historic landscape of Stonehenge was uncovered. Deep pits were darted across the area, creating a mile-wide circle centered on the stone monument. But the discovery was heavily contested, with many experts saying that it was merely natural features. Now, I don't buy that, and I'll read a little bit more of the story and tell you why. Another tests have proved that these large pits are human-made and date back 4,500 years. Experts believe it was a boundary to one large sacred structure. Professor Vincent Gavini, an archaeologist who led the find, said science has proved that this was indeed a huge Neolithic monument. He adds, some of the debate about the discovery in Stonehenge seemed bonkers to me. We've now looked at nearly half of them, and they're all the same. So, effectively, this does not say that this is one erroneous structure. It may have evolved from natural features, but we haven't located that, he said. So this is the largest prehistoric structure in Britain. Each of the 10 pits are 10 meters wide and 5 meters deep. Based on that, that's why I think it's not natural made.
It's too uniform.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, if you've got stuff like that, they wouldn't be the exact same sizes. To me, that indicates these were man-made. The researchers believe that these were dug by the Neolithic people who built Stonehenge. The previous unknown subterranean ring is 20 times bigger than Stonehenge. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, Stonehenge is unique in one thing. One, it's hard to date because the stone itself and the cut marks and stuff you're limited on your dating, and a lot of historians don't trust kind of the methods they're having used to date it. So you're having trouble with a date. And then you have the people who want to subscribe that Stonehenge is much newer than we think it is, just based on the fact that the only thing you had in that area at that time were hunter-gatherers. There's actually been a lot of study, not just on the people who came after Stonehenge, but the people who came before Stonehenge there. And obviously, they did live somewhat of a hunter-gatherer lifestyle,
right?
But so did the people who built Göbekli Tepe. And Göbekli Tepe, if it's dependent on which dating you go by with Stonehenge, is either far older than Stonehenge or somewhere around that time frame. And Göbekli Tepe changes everything we know about Neolithic construction because of its age and our ability to date it and the magnitude of the structure. But all the stuff they're finding around Stonehenge is indication of people who still hunted and kind of existed with technology that hunter-gatherers had, but they did it in more of a communal style, and that was somewhat unusual. The thing to me is we look at the date of, say, when Stonehenge was built. Well, no matter which one of those dates you agree on, you have to add some time there because, like I said, Stonehenge is aligned with the summer solstice. Actually, it comes over that headstone and shines directly into the center of that circle on the summer solstice. It took a long time for some civilization, if they figured this out on their own, to track that sun and to figure that out. So you've got a lot of time coming up before Stonehenge and probably a lot of construction before Stonehenge that had to be in place before they actually come up with it. You didn't have a bunch of hunter-gatherers traveling consistently, not farming, that had any interest whatsoever in summer solstice. And I think that's a lot of why people try to push the date further up and say, all right, this wasn't hunter-gatherer, this was more of a pagan, maybe communal society that done it. And it, to me, I've always had this idea that possibly civilization's a little bit older than we think it is. We look right around the 10,000 mark. We look really strongly at the Sumerians and look for them kind of to be the basis of, you know, what we consider modern civilization, but then Göbekli Tepe kind of predates that by a little bit. But the summer solstice thing, from Chichen Itza in South America to Egypt to Pacific Islands to India and Asia, there's so many things constructed around this time that focus on the summer solstice that I think it's obvious there's a shared knowledge there. You know,
right.
And I don't know. I think that we may have lost any ability to find out as much as we need to know about Stonehenge, or we're looking at it from such a simple perspective that it's going to take a lot of advancements in science dating-wise before we can really see how old it is. But I think Stonehenge is probably a lot older than they think it is, but I definitely think it's a part of a much larger complex. We've seen these protrusions, and LIDAR has helped that a lot. You know, they've used LIDAR in South America in these jungles and stuff to find cities and civilizations that the Aztec built that they had, and mines built that they had no clue the mines had even built. And now you're using something very similar to that, and you don't have to weed out and take out the trees and stuff in England, especially around the area of Stonehenge, and you're seeing these anomalies in the landscape that kind of point to the fact that was a pretty large structure there. And, you know, everybody talks about if civilization's so old, then there would be something left. Well, no, not unless it was stone, and anything that was stone, we can't date without some sort of secondary method of dating, whether it be erosion or you know, building materials inside the stone. So, you know, it would be easy for that to have been a timber structure, or even a larger stone structure that another group of people come in and just, you know, that was a big thing back then. Okay, you've built this to show our power, we'll destroy it. So I could easily believe that Stonehenge was a much larger installation at one point.
What do you think it may have been used for at that one point? Because as you were talking, I looked up because I couldn't remember what parallel it was in. I was going to see if it was in the 66 parallel, and it wouldn't. But the way that it's shaped, its degrees, it's like in the 51st parallel. They equal the way it's shaped and stuff, and degrees and all that. And I'm terrible at math, but they equal the lat long of the exact monument. But based on what you've read about Stonehenge, what do you think it could have been used for?
Almost all of these, regardless of the society, they almost always have some sort of religious implication. And for us, religious implication only kind of we're looking at it from a monotheistic controlled society, one God, one belief, one faith. Pagans and polytheistic religions had a lot of different things, and the reason they had all these different belief structures and gods and stuff is they kind of incorporate math, science, and everyday life into this religion, and most pagan religions are lumped in all together because they're all earthly religions based on earthly things. And so it very easily could have been something that they used for a mathematical reason or for a scientific reason, and that to them is a religious reason. And to me, I would think that it is a demonstration of a knowledge that they have obtained, more than likely a celestial knowledge, because that seems to be really important for all these ancient civilizations. The Mayan calendar is based off of sky gazing, basically, and they were able to do that within a couple hundredths of being correct, right. As far as they had 365 point whatever, and it's the same number of days we had. The Romans who came after them not able to do it to that degree of, actually they're inaccurate for the most part. I think they do 365 maybe, and they're off ever so many years. They're off a full day. So I think it probably has something to do with timekeeping and harvest and things of that. It's probably a multifaceted tool. To me, the real question is, how did they know how to build it? And how is it that all of these civilizations seem to have gained this knowledge right around the same time, and then through the same method?
Yeah, and it's like it's lost to us now.
Yeah.
So.
Some knowledge we just understood, we become to understand the process of, say, it was something that they viewed as magical, and we understand the process, so we forget the method. But you've got to understand, without the Mayans, there's no zero in the counting system in mathematics. Right. European countries didn't use zero as a fixed numerical representation. They were the ones to do that. And it's not to say that they're not intelligent enough to do it, but how did they do it more expediently than civilizations who had more food, civilizations who had more opportunity to be at peace, because they were not at peace and they were starving? All these huge Mayan cities they built, somehow they got the engineering ability to build those, but they couldn't feed the people. And so most of those were abandoned well before the Spanish came. They slowly started filtering back in after that, and then disease knocked them out. But I don't know. To me, it's more of a question of how did they come up with building it. And it all hits right in that same timeline that Dr. Carlson and Graham Hancock kind of look at, that Unger Dryas period right after what they consider to be the melting of some ice caps in North America. And, I mean, you're looking at 10 to 11,000 years ago there, and that kind of predates our preconceived notions of what we consider civilization. So if civilization was older than that, maybe that was lost.
Well, and I totally get what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. There's an article that I just saw yesterday. We'll talk about sometime in December, but it's basically talking about Antarctica. And in that, and when I'm going to say what it says, you're going to be like, you're not going to believe it. But it's talking about how if a parallel universe did exist, the probability would be that it would be in Antarctica. And some scientists think that it's possible, and they think they have located it. And they've been working on this theory since 1953. And I think that's the same time after they came up with this theory, shortly after that is when Antarctica was off limits to everybody. And I just found that article fascinating. I don't have it pulled for today, but, like Stonehenge, the Great Pyramids, Antarctica, and there's other places around the world. You've got several places that are significant for several reasons. And, some of this technology that they used to build these has been lost. And the LiDAR radar, it's on telling what could really be under Stonehenge that we don't know about yet.
Oh, I think that literally what's sticking out is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, and the sad thing about, to some people, if you don't find this huge stone structure, then you've not found anything. We know more about most civilizations because we found basically their dumps,
right?
And where they threw out trash. And if we found that at Stonehenge, we would know twice more than we would if they had left this huge stone structure. But for the time and the effort and the size of these stones, I wouldn't expect it to be a large stone structure surrounding it. I mean, that was kind of their focal point, and that's kind of what they done. Or it is even possible that, as old as Stonehenge is, it was built to replace something much larger that was there before.
Right. And you also, if you look at Easter Island, with the heads buried, when they dug down, their full bodies attached to those heads.
Yeah, and that's one of those places. I can't remember the island, but it's an island that is in that chain, has this small, well, it's not small, but they have this shrine built. And on the summer solstice, as the sun rises, it comes through and shines directly through the front door onto an altar. We can tell by ruins of previous construction that at one point they'd been off, and that they actually had to move this and readjust and change the doorway. And it originally was a much smaller structure that was built onto. We can date what they've added to it because it has wood construction. However, we cannot date the previous construction. We don't have an idea of how long that is. And when you get into, especially those island areas, that's when you get into a lot of places that we really know a lot less about. And it's fascinating at the ideal that these were built by seafaring people that has nowhere near the ability to travel oceanically as we do. And I don't know, ancient civilizations blow me away. And I think we don't give it enough credit for what they built and the magnitude of the construction projects they took on.
I think you're totally right. We're going to step away and take a break. We'll have all new Ned Said and a all new Mysterious Appalachian Mountains with Seth.
From the heart of Appalachia, located under a shopping mall near the city that moves mountains, you're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum with Goose and Dirty Dan.
Take a lighter look into the darker side of the world. Join Elliot, Gertie, and Beagle as they jump into the dark abyss of hauntings, fables, UFOs, and beyond. The Spooky Family Podcast. You can find them where you listen to quality podcasts.
It's now time for Ned Said on Here to Chew Bubblegum.
Your nostrils work one at a time.
Welcome to the Mysterious Appalachian Mountains with Seth and Earl. We got a story out of Henderson County here in Kentucky, and the city is called Reed, Kentucky. This was in 1988. An artifact hunter driving down a country road in broad daylight spotted what he at first took to be a deer standing by the side of the road. Then it stood up on two legs and ran off into the thick brush, described as being 6 or 7 feet tall, covered in brown hair and very fast. Location was the Ohio River. And, yeah, man, this is an artifact hunter, and yeah, I mean he found the wrong thing. He wasn't hunting for Bigfoot, but he found Bigfoot. And man, honestly, most of the time when somebody sees Bigfoot, it's when they're not out looking for him, man. Bigfoot researchers rarely see Bigfoot. It's mostly people, they're just your everyday people that see Bigfoot. Non-believers, actually, that don't believe in Bigfoot, usually see Bigfoot. That's what I hear from Bigfoot researchers. And yeah, man, they always say Bigfoot is really fast, so I mean, that's not out of the ordinary. I definitely find this sighting possibly as credible. But I don't know why he thought it was a deer. I guess if you're driving fast down the road and stuff, and you see something move that fast, you might think it's a deer. But yeah, man. And you also hear a lot of stories about Bigfoot being in the brush and stuff. I don't know if Bigfoot is very aware, and it seems like he is very aware of when like people is coming around and stuff. And yeah, I believe Bigfoot is very intelligent and knows when people is coming and stuff, and is the ultimate camouflager and can hide better than us humans, man. I believe Bigfoot is out in these woods we may not even know. It's untelling how many times we run across Bigfoot and not even know it. We possibly pass bushes and mountains. When we go fishing, we might on the bank, like the other side of the bank and stuff, when we pass it, I mean, Bigfoot could be there and we may not even know it, man. So I find that story very credible and possibly true. And this has been the Mysterious Appalachian Mountains with Seth and Earl. Y'all have a good night, and God bless.
You can always call, text, or leave a voicemail for Here to Chew Bubblegum at 606-373-3396.
Today I feel so down. You told me to go away. Miles and miles keep dragging me down. No one knows better than me. Someone told me to find myself. You can't take that away. And I'll find somewhere to be alone, and no one knows where I'll be. And you told me too many times before that you won't be here for me. Live and learn is what you said. What does this mean for me? This life I live is so strange. No one knows better than me. Someone told me to find myself. Can't take that away. And I'll find somewhere to be alone, and no one knows where I'll be. And you told me too many times before that you won't be here for me.
And welcome back to Here to Chew Bubblegum. I am Goose. In the studio, filling in for Dirty Dan this week is my good friend Justin Perkins,
A.K.A. Dingy Dave.
Dingy Dave.
Dingy Dave.
I like that. I
do
like that a
too.
lot.
I'm even growing a beard.
Yeah,
Dang,
yeah.
look.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Are you trying to be like Dirty Dan, grow the beard?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when you cook, you have to throw a dish towel over your shoulder.
I don't have enough thumbs to cook. So I only got 1 1/4 thumbs. So I can't.
This was recently posted on MysteryWire.com. The JFK mob ties. And after I read this, and I'll tell you about something else that we read that'll be coming up on a radio show this week. November 22nd, 2020, that marked the 1 year of, or I'm sorry, that marked 1 year ago on that day and on this date, this past year. So, marks the darkest anniversaries in American history, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Among the many conspiracy theories surrounding the murder, only one suspect has ever been prosecuted, an act that destroyed many lives. In the 59 years since that day in Dallas, the ties between JFK and the American mob have been well documented, along with Dallas, Miami, and Las Vegas played roles in the storyline that have emerged over the years. What's your thoughts about, just briefly, what's your thoughts about the JFK assassination? Why do you think stuff is still classified today?
Because the mob worked with the CIA, and that would be a big no-no.
Well, but, I mean, that's almost 60 years ago that happened. Wouldn't it be time to just come clean?
No, the government doesn't like to come clean, especially like, it's a unique situation because you've got, I'd say you've got a Republican in, and he's going to come clean. It's going to make Kennedy look bad. It's also going to make the CIA look bad, who, between George Herbert Walker Bush and Rumsfeld and Cheney has a very thick tie to the CIA. So company guys aren't going to come forward and let out the CIA part of it. And then you take like this time Biden just said, no, we're going to sit on that for a while. Well, it comes out and maybe tarnishes, even though it shouldn't. It's one person, but comes out and tarnishes the Democratic Party because he was a Democrat. And I think it's really things just as naive as that. Plus, the ideal, the American public, that they can't trust the CIA or that the United States government ever had any dealings with the mob is a scary prospect for them, and it's better to just ignore it.
Do you think that once all the players have passed away, then eventually they may come clean?
I don't think you'll ever know the full truth. I just don't. And I think anything involving the U.S. government's always like that. I think you'll always get their version of the truth. The thing that kind of irritates me with we can't tell you exactly who the shooter is without their help, but the evidence that it didn't happen the way they said it happened is everywhere.
Oh,
and it's,
yeah. It did not happen.
Yeah, people still choose to believe that narrative. So even them coming forward, they'd find a way to deny it or sugarcoat it, and people would believe it because they've believed the original story for all these years.
Now, do you think it's a combination of mob ties or him putting too much pressure on other branches and offices demanding information and his extramarital activities?
Well, he was a headache for a lot of reasons for them, but to me, we know the mob and CIA will work together. We look at the Bay of Pigs. We know the mob's vested interest in Cuba, and we know the CIA's vested interest in Cuba, and we know they work together on that. But the mob got Kennedy elected, and not only did he not pay back what his father had promised the mob in terms of the power and influence they'd have over the president, he sent his little brother after him, and pretty hard. And it cost his little brother, too.
Okay. Now, this story, like I said, I read this on the radio show, and we didn't really get to talk about it a whole lot in length. I think I actually had to edit some of it out just due to time restraints because the radio show is only 1 hour. And this happened earlier this month. QAnon supporters gather in downtown Dallas expecting JFK Jr. to reappear. Did you hear about this?
Yes, I did.
Okay. This story says some believe the reappearance of John F. Kennedy's son, who died in a plane crash in 1999, will bring the reinstatement of president or bring the reinstatement of Donald Trump as president. Sources of QAnon believers gathered in downtown Dallas in the hopes that JFK Jr. would appear, hurdling the reinstatement of Donald Trump as president. The supporters first gathered on a Monday night in Dallas around 1 p.m. There were several hundred people in Daley Plaza where President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. Guess what? JFK Jr. did not show up. I didn't think he would show up.
Well, he's a busy guy. And, being dead that long, there's probably a lot of other places he had to go first.
Yeah.
And maybe next week.
Well, and I may get some hate mail over this, but when you got somebody that's putting stuff like this on the internet, first do your research. Don't be open-minded, but don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out, that you're going to believe everything they type and they say. Do a little research. Now, we have talked on the show before about a possibility of JFK Jr. being alive, and I read that story before. Do I believe it? No. Could it be possible? Yes, it could be, because the Clintons, I think, have got to a lot of people. So
that part I believe.
It could be possible. But I guess what saddens me is that you've got people that are willing to believe in something so far as to just follow what some unknown person puts on the internet.
Well, he's not unknown anymore.
Well,
I mean, he is to them, and he is to most of the. HBO did an amazing series called Q Into the Storm. And
yes, they did.
Pretty well. I mean, they had the guy admit to it. Everything works out logistically. He may not be Q any longer, but you found the guy that made you look dumb for 6 months. Just look, I've done a lot of things that made me look dumb. Just look at it and go, all right, I got fooled, and go on.
You know, there's been so many times in my life that I've wanted to believe something specific that I probably didn't use the best judgment. Oh, yeah. And I look back now, and I wish I could have done things different. But, you know, all I want to say is when you read anything on the internet, do your research, take it with a grain of salt. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I've learned that recently over the past couple of months. I won't say how I learned that. But if you really want to make a difference, start with yourself. And how can you make yourself or those close to you, how can you make a difference in their lives? And then expand out. And for me, anybody that you have a positive influence on, if you help somebody in a certain way, no matter what it may be, if you smile at somebody, if you hold the door open for somebody, if you have kind words to say to somebody, that person may take that and affect somebody else. So like a whole chain just being nice to one person may affect 100 people.
Yeah.
99 of them you're not even aware of. But if you want to make a change, really make a change. Start with yourself. Start with those close to you. And like I said, don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good advice.
That's all. I mean, what else about JFK do you want to say?
Look, I've already got tons of hate mail on my email on Talk Junkie, because I've mentioned him a couple of times, especially talking about presidents. And, he's not the worst president ever. I cleared that up on an episode of Talk Junkie. I identified that gentleman. I don't, we like to make martyrs and heroes out of people that are just everyday people. He made mistakes. He done bad things. He tried to do some good things. He kind of just is a person. But as far as JFK Jr. goes, just a guy who, had a tragic childhood,
yes,
and had to live through a lot. I don't know a ton about him. I've never heard anything awful about him. He seemed to be just a fine, normal person. And I don't know, it's kind of disrespectful to his memory to say, oh, yeah, he's coming back and he's going to stop the New World Order. And it's like, I don't know. I don't get it. Remember him for whatever his accomplishments were. I know he was a publisher. I think he had a magazine called George.
George, yeah.
He done a lot of things in his life. And it's hard to probably for him to outlive not only the shadow of his father, but also the shadow of his uncle and his mother. I don't know. I kind of feel bad for his family. Why would he be the guy to come back? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand why they put him in this situation. And I don't know. There's a lot of real world problems out there you could deal with that didn't involve bringing zombie JFK Jr. back.
There you go. Okay. So JFK Jr., you think he's dead?
Well, no, he's dead.
Okay. Elvis Presley.
He's dead.
Let's see. Tupac.
Dead.
Biggie.
Dead.
Okay. Is there any person that you think could have faked their own death? And if so, who is that person and why do you think that?
No famous person in modern times. I just, especially today, I just don't think it's possible. First, there's the legality, and then there's, convincing friends and family. The legality is probably the hardest part. I mean, I'm sure there's people in other countries that's done it. I'm sure there's criminals that have done it. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. Betty White may have fooled us all. She may not even be alive at all. She may be completely dead, but just got a stand-in. I don't know, but I can't think of anybody that I believe faked their death.
What about Kim Jong-un? Do you think he's dead or alive?
Oh, no, I think he's dead. And if he wasn't, I think his son would have went ahead as soon as he went into hiding and took him out to make sure he had real control. Those guys were cut till he killed his own uncle.
So, he did. So,
Daddy wouldn't last long if he got in charge.
You think he's dead and somebody behind the scenes over in Korea is pulling the strings, right?
Un or ill, the son or the dad?
The fat chubby one right now that supposedly had heart surgery.
No, we're not lucky enough for him to die. He's still alive.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, but there's not been a lot of stuff about him come out, over the past year.
Yeah, but he's good friends with Dennis Rodman. Can you imagine how much fun it is to hang out with Dennis Rodman? He's not got time to be a mean dictator.
Now it would be fun to hang out with Dennis Rodman.
Maybe not safe, but fun.
I would totally agree with you there. Going back to Elvis just for a second. I mean, in the 70s, 77 or 78, whenever he passed away, you didn't have internet, you didn't have camera phones. It would have been easier, I think, for him out of any one of those that we named to get away with it. It's easy to get a birth certificate, Social Security number. Even today's age, you can still do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell how to do it on the show, but you can still do it. You could do, this ties back into JFK's mob associations. If you've ever watched any mob movies or you ever had any mob siders and they wanted to get new IDs and stuff, you could follow the ways that they did.
Well, look, I'm not saying it's not possible in general. I would even go as far as to say maybe it's as high as one person a year does it. Like, I'm not saying you can't do it because I can't remember the case, but there was a criminal who faked his death for life insurance money and collected the life insurance money and then got caught trying to do it again. Now, it's definitely possible. I just don't think it's as possible for high-profile people. And somebody like Elvis, I don't know that Elvis would want to not be in the limelight. And that's kind of a problem for performers, is them not wanting to be
What about Michael Jackson? Do you think he's dead?
I think if he could have faked it, he definitely would have. Especially if all the things they said about him are true, because it would have been advantageous for him to do so. But I think for all the people on the list, including Elvis and Tupac and Biggie, I think it would be harder for him because worldwide, no. It might be easier for him.
No, I do want to thank you very much, Justin, for coming in and sitting in today, and you're a great co-host. Look forward to having you back. Look forward to doing some more Believe It or Nots with you. I love recording with you. I am really a huge fan of yours, and I'm blessed that you're my friend, and look forward to the future with you.
That's what I like about the show. You get your money's worth. I paid him $20 to say that.
Now, with
above and beyond,
is there anything you want to say before we close things out here?
No, my beard's not as immaculate as Dan's yet.
Your beard looks fine. Don't forget about Cooking with Dirty Dan. You can see that on TikTok.
That's not what we want to see, Dirty Dan do.
You can see that on TikTok. Be sure to check out Carbon Capture Shield, adventureswithpurpose.com. Also want to say special thanks to Carlin for all the voiceover work. Be sure to check out friends of our show that has their own shows. I'm talking about CK and Uncle Bill over at deadpit.com. Justin Perkins with Talk Junkie.
I've heard that show's not much.
Oh, that show is great. Jordan and Brad down the holler. Seth Ambergy with Seth's Daily Podcast. Gertie, Elliott, and Beagle over at spookyfamily.com. The Mountain Mysteries Podcast with Chris Sloan. And if you're a fan of Cronkite, he's now known as PT. You can listen to him, Snowman, and Large Marge over at Paranormal Trucker on Yahoo.
YouTube.
On YouTube. Man, I'm just having a tongue tie today.
Some of them days.
On YouTube. I almost said Yahoo again. If you want to awaken more, be sure to check out Rebecca Short on TikTok. I've had been on break too long. And you can find her on Twitch as Queen of the Flock 138. That'll do it for this week. We'll see you next week. And until then, so long for now.
Maybe I'm not going home. Maybe I'm just going to Dirty Dan's house.
There you go. We'll see you.
Thanks for listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. Tune in next time as we dive deeper into things the government doesn't want us to know.